What's up, everybody? Nick Powles, publisher of 1851franchise.com. Today, we're going to take a tour into at Home Eldercare. Coming up next. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. All right, Gavin. What I love to start off with is your story. And I reference this as how you accidentally fell into franchising. But it seems like everybody does. So how did you accidentally fall into franchising?
Well, Nick, we've all heard of the expression, necessity is the mother of invention. There you go. I, quite candidly, went through a divorce. And I've had two careers in my lifetime, Nick. I've sold software. And I have run a senior care agency. The last half, I ran a senior care agency for the better part of 18 years and went through a divorce. At that point, we had actually I owned and founded two businesses, both focused on senior care. Home Care Seminar, we actually teach for our licensing division here in North Carolina. So if you want to start a home care agency in the state of North Carolina, you actually have to go through my class or a competitor's class. And so we had taught that for 15 years. Long story short, I founded my franchise or my home care agency from scratch. I built it up to over $1 million a year. Went through divorce. And since I had put my ex-mother-in-law in business, and she'd run her home care agency for 10 years. My ex-wife had 6 years of experience working in the agency. I thought, in the divorce settlement, she can have the agency. I've got a clean conscience because she can run it and she can make as much money, quite literally, as she wants. She's got the experience. Her mother's got the experience. She can't fail. So she got it. And I needed to reinvent myself. Mm-hmm. And so really necessity is the mother of invention. And I thought, what have I done? How do you reinvent yourself? And at this point, I'm in my early 50s, right? And come to find out, I love putting people in business. I love mentoring them. I ran a home care agency for 18 years. I thought, let's start a franchise, for heaven's sakes. It'll be all new challenges. And for a guy with a career attention span of 15 to 18 years, that was just perfect. And I think it's working out awesome so far.
All right. So flash forward in the story. How many units do you have open today?
We've got 8 units open today.
Okay. And when did you start franchising?
A couple of years ago.
Okay. So expectation-wise, you go through a divorce, you reinvent yourself, you know what you've done well, you know how to build up a infrastructure that has the operational soundness to it. And so you launch into franchising. Has franchising hit your expectation or missed your expectation?
I think it's totally hit my expectation. Especially on the front of the new challenges every day. Because it's if life were boring and mundane, it would be no fun. I mean, and you got to use your head and you got to be able to noodle through these things. I mean, we batted in review of 2023, we batted 600. I mean, if you bat 600, you're a rock star. We grew the franchise, with 3 franchises this year, so I was really tickled. The goal was to get 5. We had 3. It's not explosive growth, but at the end of the day, we're an emerging brand. So I would say that I'm incredibly excited about where we're at and the challenges on a day-to-day basis. Now you're taking disparate individuals and you're coaching them, and you've got to tweak. To a degree, you need to tweak and customize each support level to that individual, and I think that's where the enjoyment is coming from.
Out of curiosity, I mean, in your opening story, you talk about two businesses. You talk about your senior care business, and you talk about your training / university concept of saying, hey, if you want to go into this space, you got to go through a training, and we've set up a company to do so. Is that part of your magic, that why this has worked well for franchising, because you actually understood how to stand up these businesses on their own?
Absolutely. I couldn't have asked for a better layup. Thank you. The sister company is called Home Care Seminar. And over the course of 15 years, we have put over 100 individuals in business. In the fact that we brought them into Raleigh, put them through a 5-day training, and then they went back to their respective cities and towns across America. We have trained home care agencies and put home care agencies in business from Oakland County, California, out to Boston, Chicago, Detroit, all the way down to Tampa, Florida, and all points in between. So we did that for 15 years. So a lot of the challenge of getting into franchising is literally coming up with an operations manual, coming up with the training materials, coming up with a support structure. How do you support a brand new startup business, whether it's home care or a hamburger joint or a restoration company? How do you support those individuals? We had 15 years of experience in putting people in business and making them successful. I'm tickled, and I would very much like to have had these folks as franchisees back 15 years ago. Nick, I've got people that I put in business 10, 12, 14 years ago. These folks are selling their home care agencies already and retiring.
Right.
Nothing could be more flattering than that.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty cool. So yes, we took all of those pieces that we developed over 15 years, and we literally just assembled them. And so we kind of cheated a little bit. We used 15 years of experience to kind of start the franchise off.
You still have your sister business too, right?
I do. Yes. Yep. We sure do.
Is there, conflict is the wrong term. Are you conflicted at all in franchising versus independent? Because in essence, you've helped so many humans skip over franchising by saying go start up their own. Now, they're not going to scale like a franchise, and they won't have the resources like a franchise. But even if you reflect backwards, should they have bought a franchise instead? Would that have given them more? But then on the reverse, you said, well, they're exiting and they're retiring, so maybe not. It's like it's two different business models, you know?
It is, and I think that I don't think that there's a conflict there, because what we teach is licensure. So we're taking a lot of individuals, and it's just quite literally, it's on the statutes, rules, and regulations of starting a home care agency in North Carolina. It is the law that we're teaching. It's a 1-day class. If they want to go out and be an independent home care agency owner, that's the first step. I don't think it's a conflict, because the benefits of a franchise organization, I feel, I've seen both sides. I owned an independent home care agency for 15 years or 18 years before I gave it to my ex-wife. I know how lonely it is. Yeah. I know that you can't actually ask a local competitor, hey, Nick, how are things going today? Because they're candidly not going to be very truthful with you. Whereas with a franchise organization, it's all about the internal support and the support you get from your fellow peers. It's about brand strength and recognition. And we're in the top 10% already of brands across North Carolina. So I'm absolutely thrilled with that. And I want to be number one. And we are going to be number one in the state of North Carolina, number one in the Southeast. And so is there a conflict there? Not really. Now, I would encourage everybody to look at franchising and give it a good consideration, because candidly, we can up your franchising, I believe, ups the odds of a business owner.
Yeah.
You've got somebody in your corner coaching and mentoring you and saying, hold on, Nick, let's time out here. Before you spend that $4,000 on print advertising, what's your opportunity cost? Where else can you use that $4,000 to maybe bring clients in that's not a newspaper display ad?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think a collective has value, and also skipping the line, meaning all your institutional knowledge is laid out in the operational model of what this business is. So I totally buy into that. From a point of differentiation, and maybe there doesn't need to be one. Maybe it is proximity, and then it's the just service level has to be pristine. But do you have points of differentiation? Because the marketplace for senior care is quite crowded. Do you have, like, this is how you're different?
It is. And I think whether it's at Home Elder, I'll be very candid with you. We hold our franchisees our franchise partners to an incredibly high level. I ran the best home care agency, not in the state of North Carolina, not in the country, not in the world. And I fully expect my franchisees to live up to that. So I think service does separate it. I think if you're looking at, and I'm absolutely sold on the market, in 7 years, 2030, 1 out of 5 individuals that you pass on the street is going to be 65 or over. That's a huge market in America. So I think as an industry, on a growth industry, it's going to be awesome for the next 30 years. So I think we've got that advantage going for us. I think our key differentiator is at this point as an emerging brand franchise, you get to work directly with me. Now, when we have 100, 200, 300 franchises, am I going to be leading the support calls every Wednesday? Probably not. I'm probably going to have some territory managers doing that or some operations type people doing it. But at this point, as we grow the franchise out, you're going to work directly with me. Now, that's one advantage. Another advantage, and to your point, it is a mature industry. We have territories available, Nick. If you go to Visiting Angels, if you go to Home Instead Senior Care, which is no longer Home Instead Senior Care, they sold out. They don't have any more territories available. So as an emerging brand, we've got territories available all over the United States. You don't have to move to take a territory with us.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm hearing, which there's nothing wrong with this. What I'm hearing is, yeah, in fundamental points of differentiation from a business opportunity standpoint, you get to work with the visionary, and you can open in the market that you want to open in. Ultimately, this on the service level, it's not going to vary drastically across who's providing the service. Now, the expectations, what you just said, the Gavin expectation from the visionary is, in order for me to create something that had reputation, I had to be very, very strict on the level of service that we provided to our customers. So there is a methodology that you've approached, or even just your approach period, that will lift up the consumer experience to be different. But it is a proximity game because everybody else is sold out, and there's still a need because there's still a demand.
Yes to all the above. I think I'd add one thing to it, Nick.
Yeah.
And this is not, I mean, I don't think it's 18 years of running a home care agency or being in the industry for 23 years. But if you want to run the most successful home care agency in the world, then Nick needs to wake up every morning, and when he's brushing his teeth and looking in the mirror, Nick needs to ask himself, what can I do for my employees that I'm not currently doing? And what can I do for our clients that we're not currently doing? And if you keep those two factors in place, you will have a very successful home care agency.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I started a business 23 years ago, started my own home care agency, was the golden rule. I wanted to be treated the way that others, I would treat other people. And I'd been on the short end of the stick coming out of sales. And I'd seen my, some commissions go over to London or go over to Frankfurt, Germany, or other places where they should have stayed here. And I thought, you know what? If I were to start and own my own business, I'd like to treat my employees the way I'd like to be treated. And I think that, yeah, there's a lot of management gurus out there, Nick. Yeah. But if you take care of your people, then they're going to take care of you. And I think that applies to your clients as well when it comes to caring for seniors in their homes. And it's front and center with me because I have 2 aging parents. Yeah. And I live it every day.
Where do your referrals come from?
For new franchises or for clients?
For clients.
Clients, number one referral source in our industry are hospitals, case managers, and discharge planners.
Yeah. So I would imagine, like, treat your employees the way you want to be treated. It's also treat those folks the way that they deserve to be treated so that you are on the short list of referrals in whatever market you're in. So franchisee X stands up their business in that marketplace. Like, they got to treat those folks like their family too.
Yes, they do. And since you brought it up, we'll kind of go down that rabbit hole. What's our number one referral source? Well, it's case managers and discharge planners at the hospitals. But every hospital in this country, Nick, has what we call as a referral list. So if your parents, your mom or your dad is in the hospital and they're being discharged tomorrow, they're going to come to you and they're going to hand you a printout, and again, they're going to say, Nick, here's a list of home care agencies. You're working full time. You need to get some help in for mom or dad. And so they give you this list and you take it home. Well, guess how that list is put together? Alphabetically.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know this when I started my first home care agency 23 years ago. Our name was Helping Hands of America. Oh, my Lord, it's a terrible name for a home care agency. So, having taken all of those years of experience, the franchise name is At Home Eldercare, and it tells you exactly what we do. And most importantly, that list is put together alphabetically, Nick. Our name is at the top of the list.
Yeah, that's right.
They never make it to Home Instead Senior Care. They never make it to Visiting Angels. They never make it to Bright Star, because what do you do when you get an alphabetical list and you need to call off from it? You start at the top and you call until you find something that makes you happy, and then you stop calling. At least my franchisees and my partners are getting those phone calls.
Now that you're putting some of these practices into play with franchisees, how do you feel about performance at the beginning stages? Or have you found gaps, or is it hitting your expectation from their performance? Not about selling franchise, but franchisee success. How are those hitting?
With what we have come out of over the past 2.5 to 3 years of COVID,
yeah,
I'm thrilled. I mean, I am above expectation. In our industry, if you're an average home care agency, you will do $250,000 gross sales your first year. Well, I think I got to be biased. I got to admit, I'm biased. I don't want to be average at anything.
Yeah.
I think if you got a group of guys, the best analogy I can give you is you're jogging. And you're running a foot race. And you're in the middle of the pack. The view never changes from the middle of the pack. You start the race in the middle of the pack, into the middle of the pack. All you've seen are a bunch of runners around you. If you're out in front, Nick, you're seeing new territory every time you put your foot down.
Yeah.
I want you out in front. So have my franchisees performed above expectation? Yes. And I'm thrilled with that. Did they do it during COVID? They did. And I'm even more tickled about that.
I mean, look, just your approach in general, and like if I'm breaking down what is the opportunity, and I mean this in the kindness and most transparent way. What we've learned is there's not going to be a huge point of differentiation. It's going to be dependent on the owner or operator of that business. So a franchisee, what I'm hearing is it's ultimately in their control whether they're going to have success or not. If they treat their employees the right way, if they treat those in their community the right way, then they can have success in this category. If they don't, and they don't behave in the Gavin rule, then their success is going to be limited based on that.
Diminished.
Yeah, and ultimately, because there's not a ton of point differentiation on the consumer standpoint. Point differentiation comes back to the individual. As an emerging brand, you have territory availability. Eventually, that's going to deteriorate, just like it has for other brands, and you're already seeing that with the first franchisees that are coming into play. And what you're getting from a business standpoint is you've been doing this for a long time, both in the category of being a business operator and being in the category of supporting the franchisee through training. Is there anything else, Gavin, that you want the ghost candidate, someone that may be watching this, to know about the business opportunity?
The reason I never wanted to be what I would call a flash in the pan or a charlatan, Nick. And I know that there are a lot of individuals in our industry that got into senior care a couple of years ago and said, oh my God, I've got to franchise this. And so they started franchising. They've got a year or two under their belts. We came at franchising from a totally different direction. In fact, 180 degrees. We were in the business for 18 years before we started franchising. And so we have a wealth of knowledge that maybe somebody would. So what I would suggest the ghost shopper look at is the background of the company, background of the organization. How many years do they actually have in senior care? Do they have one or two, or do they have 23 years of experience? My nurse has got over 40 years experience just in senior care alone. So I think what we bring to the table certainly is a wealth of knowledge. We've got a startup plan for a new business that has been tested repeatedly over the past 15 years. Mm-hmm. So if I could go back to the way back time machine and change things, when I started franchising, 15, 18 years ago instead of starting a couple of years ago, probably, but you just can't beat that experience. You can't beat firsthand knowledge. So yeah, I would say look under the covers. And certainly I would be betting on the jockey in this case instead of the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for what it's worth, I think you were in franchising. You just weren't collecting a royalty. I mean, in essence, you've helped so many businesses figure out a pathway on how you get to the starting line. And that's ultimately what a franchise does. And your methodology had to come out in those training anyway. So it's like you've been doing it. You just weren't structured as a franchise. You weren't collecting a fee and not a royalty. So that's good that you now have it set up here. Out of curiosity, because I don't know the answer to this. How do I get to your franchise website?
You go to, it's a different, you've got our franchise, our senior care website pulled up. Our franchising website is at Home Eldercare Franchising.com.
And can you get to it from your consumer site?
No, in fact, we specifically took it off from there because I didn't want confusion because you see this all the time on other companies' websites. Hey, do you need senior care or do you want to buy a franchise? We totally stripped it off from our website. It's a totally different website. So it's at homeeldercarefranchising.com is where you go to learn about buying a franchise with us. Much like any other franchise in America, it's a pretty straightforward process.
I'm gonna give you one counter to that, and this is why. I do think there is a beauty to the owner operator, and what that allows a business like yours to do is to scale and take the Gavin approach. And I do think like the Gavin story is vital to this. Like I would almost strip out the consumer side and talk about your mission, vision, and values, because that's part of the magic behind the business. And I would counter you and say, I would put franchising back on. I wouldn't use the word franchise, and I might put like
partner,
owner portal or owner site, just to show that there's someone who cares about like the way that they feed their family through the success of this business. And if they're following the model, then they're going to hold true for some of the principles you put in place. I actually think it's a positive benefit to a location to be celebrated as an owner operator.
Well, I love my partners, and I want to celebrate them. It's an easy change, and I appreciate the suggestion. You certainly talk to a lot more franchisees and franchisors, Nick, than I do.
Well, I would the last line that I'll leave it at is brands don't sell brands, people do. And you're in such a people business that's where your story is important. And frankly, like some of the pathway to how you get here, including going through the emotions of a divorce, which is not easy to do.
Yeah.
Like ultimately there's sores in your story that you're able to use as fuel and motivation today. That if I were reshaping this thing, I think there's some really cool nuggets that came out of this conversation that I would put front and center from my viewpoint. So
I would, well, and Nick, I'd love to chase those down with you.
Yep, I love it. Well, Gavin, thanks so much for sharing some of your story. Obviously, like this is meant for someone that's looking at the category or the industry to land on this and get a sense of who you are as a person and what the brand is. And we're grateful for you doing an episode of Meet the Zor.
Well, I'm flattered to be here today, Nick. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what the results are.
I love it. For Gavin, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor.